Welcome to episode 4 of the Picard stream with Jumpsuit Utopia. Today we have the classic crew. We have Kyle from General Intellect Unit.
Hey.
We have Commandante Alpha, aka Chief O'Brien, aka Tom O'Brien from Alpha to Omega.
AKA Dad O'Brien, who is
That's right.
tending Lil Kiriyoshi.
Right. He'll be on later. And then we got Esri.
This is Esri. All previous designations are irrelevant.
Whoa. Esri got Borged, apparently.
I'm so bored right now. Oh, shit.
And then there's me. I do Trans Revolution. I've been on the From Alpha to Omega reading series.
What's your name again?
I forgot. Sophia.
State your designation.
3 of 5. I think that's Hugh's designation anyway.
It is,
yeah.
That just popped in my head first. So, we have a really interesting episode. Let's jump right in. Kyle does have to leave early today.
What's it called? What season?
Well, I did say Picard earlier.
Oh,
It's episode 1, or season 1, episode 4, Absolute Candor. So the plot kind of basically just opens up with another flashback kind of deal where they are relocating a bunch of Romulans on this planet, and Picard comes beaming in like a explorer guy with a fucking little hat and his little like brown little suit, like he's about to like theft some artifacts from Africa or something. And
he beamed in like a wrecking ball.
I beamed in like a wrecking ball.
Okay.
So he beams in like a wrecking ball. All these Romulans are like, our white knight, yay! And then they run up to him. It really, when it comes to the different species in Star Trek, I really got the feeling that, like, I don't know. There's always been like kind of like an Asian vibe of the Romulans, but they always seem to be equal to Federation in most respects. Maybe except for, political organization and ethics, but other than that, like technology, culturally, like they were very much like the equals to Federation. But in this scene, I really got the sense that Picard, it felt like he was like a Victorian anthropologist or something, He's obviously has a better motive and ethics than that, but there's still this power balance that like immediately jumped out at me.
It's true. Picard shouldn't have tried to help. He should just stayed on Earth. I'm kidding. Well, like the big difference is, of course, Romulus exploded, right? Now the Romulans are lots of creaking. The Romulans are an imperial people, like, for like a long time. They're, not just like noble, like, non-human subjects. And then they suffer an enormous catastrophe, which fundamentally changes the power relationship. And yeah, so there's something like a human savior complex going on through this episode. But like, I don't know, we'll get into this, but I think, there's a number of ways of reading Picard. There's an obvious like shitty colonialist adventurer kind of guy that it's not like Picard has never echoed that in the past. But he's always tried to be better. This is a situation where maybe he didn't do a great job.
And go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, these people are refugees. So that's, an obvious change from, snooty Romulans talking down to the humans, what we've seen in previous series.
Yeah,
but Picard's kind of problematic, I don't know what he's doing with all these Romulans. He should stay in his lane. I mean, aren't they our enemies anyway? Like,
yeah, I know you're joking, but to be clear, that's not what I'm saying. It's good for him to help. I think there was a subtle decision being made, and maybe I'm giving the showrunners too much credit, but like dressing Picard up as an explorer. I mean, he's technically French, but he's British. We all know he's British, right? Like
he's just space French. It's British, you know?
Right? Yeah, it's space French is British. We all know that. So my headcanon is that French culture annihilated in the World War, so it's just the same thing as British culture, except for wine and croissants.
So the English finally did conquer France.
Finally, it took World War
It took
III.
a very long time.
Way to go, old chaps! That'll make up for losing Ireland and Scotland and Wales.
Yeah, instead of Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, they just have France and the British island. Anyway,
works for me.
So I agree with Esri in that like he should help. That's the right thing to do. But this theme of him being a savior is kind of teased out throughout the episode, and they kind of circle back to that later on. So he goes to this like nunnery, if you will, and he is like welcome there. They helped him with the evacuation efforts, and you see this little boy running around, and
Elnor.
Yeah,
Elnor.
Yeah, he's really cute. And Picard has definitely gotten over his hatred of children you see in season 1. And they kind of tease that too a little bit. And then we quickly find out that Elnor's not really kind of supposed to be there. He just didn't have anywhere else to go. This is a nunnery, so it's not a place for boys. And one of the things that we were talking about in our notes for this show was the very
gender trouble,
or
the lack thereof. So we have Elnor, who is known as Sister Boy, from a sister boy to like I guess Romulan culture, which is like I guess real sexist. I mean, I didn't know that, but sure. I mean, it's Star Trek, right? Like, I guess this is like an imperial people turned refugees or something. And I don't know, they didn't get birth control and HRT and the internet or something, I guess. Like, anyway.
So, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, it seems like, the culture is really strongly gendered in a way that is a little odd to me because in previous presentations of the Romulans, like they didn't like have very strongly distinguished dress between men and women, right? Like it was very similar. And now it's like, boom, this is really strongly gender culture. This is men and there's women. You don't cross the line, and you don't be a sister boy. That makes you a deviant.
No.
Weird.
Very naughty.
Damn it. Well, okay. This is my last show. It's nice meeting everybody. No sisters, boys, so I better. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the grown-up Elnor is a straight biche, and if that's what it means to be a sister boy, then I guess I'm bisexual.
Right? Oh my god, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, kind of. I think one potential explanation for this, because you're right, Kyle. Like before, Romulan women wore the same shoulder pads as the Romulan men. They had the same haircuts. Yeah, like they were. It was a very androgynous society in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and they had bangs. Everybody had bangs.
Everybody had bangs. I'd fit right in.
Oh god.
But I think the thing with the Sisters of Absolute Candor is that they're not deviant. But what we've learned about Romulan culture is that they manage their emotions through very roguelike behavior, and it's like ingrained in their culture so much so that like they have everybody has like a fake front door in traditional Romulan houses. So, and like there's a whole ritual that like we saw Soji kind of performing to like being entered into the home. The Sisters of Absolute Candor are the opposite. They are an open book, problematically so. They're like that edgy friend who's like, I just speak my mind, and if you can't handle it, then you can't just handle me. You know, they're like that, except for spiritual. And so maybe they have kind of a lot of other things about their culture that's the inverse, that's accepted in mainstream Romulan culture, but they're a little nunnery. They're a nunnery assassin group or whatever. Is the inverse in a lot of ways. They're brutally honest. Their like living quarters are always open to visitors. They are, how you say, lost my train of thought.
They're everything that the Romulans aren't. They're
Right.
like, instead of being like secretive as ass to the point where, you know, you don't know anything about them, to the point where there's like, I don't know, 50 years of canon and they never flesh out the Romulans because they're sneaky. Yeah. Sisters of Absolute Candor. Don't know their actual names, but I'm going to call them that. Sisters of Absolute Candor just have no filter. It's like a religion of no filter, because I don't want to be, you know, like everyone else here. So why censor yourself?
Yeah, they're like the opposite of Romulans, but not in the Vulcan way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vulcans have nice rational lies that they can use, I'm sure. Like,
yeah, they have. They still express their emotions. They just manage it through putting it all out there, and they.
The name of the group is the Kawat Milat too.
Thank you.
That's their name.
The Quatlamat Malat are. I'm assuming that's the reason why they have genders, because they do the inverse of it. Like, I guess Romulus has gender, but you get what I'm saying. That they have more traditional and distinct gender roles. And they're not like dainty women. Like, there are assassins, right?
Right.
So, but it's a women's only group.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm thinking, like, if I'm going to play D on this episode, right? Because I think we're going to dig into this. Let's say Romulan culture is highly gendered to the point where living with a bunch of nuns makes you like socially stigmatized or something as a boy. Shrug. But you don't really see that other than a couple of the S-bombs being thrown. Other than that, like, it seems like the main reason that they're obsessed with, like, you know, Elnor's like gender appropriate housing or something is for the sake of him having like role models and company. I mean, I don't know. Picard says, "Oh, Elnor must be lonely. You know, there's only Woms here. You know, like, it must be lonely for a boy." But I think to do a little, you know, reconstructive surgery on the episode, maybe it's like, maybe, you know, Elnor needs a role model. You know, all he's got are the, you know, toxic Romulans on TV. And there's no one like really, you know, on the Hollow. There's no one really like showing little Elnor how to be, you know, a good man. Mainly because it's like fictional, more or less. But the point is that I think it's probably something that like is, you know, intrinsic to the appeal of Picard's character, right? Is that he's a good man. He's a man. It's like maybe sort of incidental to most of the portrayal of his character, except for maybe his like repression or something. Like, but I didn't really see that many like men on TV that were someone that I thought was like cool and like respectable and upstanding, and he's like something something out of science fiction.
So I gotta ask. I just watched the first scene up through the opening sequence. I didn't see them say sister boy at all. I might have missed it, but like I went back and watched the same scene right before Picard beams out again, and I didn't see it.
It's I didn't get the timestamp, but I definitely went back and checked it. So it does happen. It's with the merchant that's in the the town square there. Yeah.
Yeah, he steals like a fruit, and he's like, "Fucking sister boy, what's your problem?"
Oh,
and,
okay. I thought it was Picard who said it.
No.
No.
What?
No.
What's my little faggot doing? That's not what Picard is like. No, it's like Eleanor steals the fruit, and it's like, get lost, sister boy, or something, and he's like, bite me, eat my ass, merchant, you fucking trad asshole. Anyway,
oh my god,
Eleanor holding it down. Yeah.
Sister boy realness.
Should we make that the episode title?
I don't know, babe. Let's just move on. If I don't want to get this podcast delisted from iTunes as well. I mean, like,
why not? That sounds fun.
If I don't know if you want an audience, it's not great. Like, peace be with you, Kyle.
Where's my camera? Here's my camera. Anyway,
right there. Live long and prosper.
So let's see. So yeah, I mean, we kind of ran that topic into the ground. So we kind of started a little bit. Did something else you want to say with that?
Well, it's like, why? Why does it have to be this way? Like, okay, it makes sense maybe for Romulans to be all sexist and shit, but like, no mention of, I don't know, in like contemporary, colonial relations, if you're going to be like, like an imperialist, you're spreading some kind of Western feminism and transgenderism and all kinds of like, stuff that's disruptive to traditional gender hierarchy. Picard not really holding the torch for anything transformative like that. Just like, well, kid needs a good man role model. And I don't know. That feels like within the universe. Okay, I know Star Trek is Rick Bermany and sexist as shit like the whole time. However, like, it feels like it makes more sense out of universe because of Picard's role as a role model in real life, as like a character, than it does in universe where, I don't know, you could like teleport and just make food out of air and shit. Like,
yeah, I think this is just a product of Star Trek yet again kind of falling short on gender issues and queer issues. And I don't know if there's much of an in-universe explanation for that. Except for maybe, as we kind of talked about in the past, like in this future, well, it's like utopian, there's still like a gender binary, there's still like a bourgeois family of something similar to that. And so they haven't really solved all the problems. They solved most of them. They solved the primary economic conflicts. Maybe not even fully solved class, but it's like it's social democracy on crack, basically. Social democracy with replicators.
Yeah, I mean, if Picard makes anything clear, it's that, the Federation is certainly not a classless society. Like, that's the thing we were dancing around, the other day when we were talking about this. But, I think it's fair to, like, try to, reconstruct this as like well as we can, or interpret it. I guess this is some kind of 90s Derridian interpretation where you feel politically disempowered, so you're projecting your shit onto media. But Star Trek invites it. Star Trek's like, yeah, we got rid of money. We got rid of all that shit. We're in the future. It's awesome. So it wants you to do that. And I don't even want to say I'm disappointed, because it's sort of par for the course. I was like cringing inside like a little bit, but like it's rather par for the course for Star Trek to kind of miss out on that edge of things.
Yeah, I think the show could even be forgiven if it was just that merchant who was being like bigoted.
The merchant, and the guy with the disruptor who tries to kill Elnor at the end, who also shouts "Sister Boy" at him.
Right. If it was just those two characters, and that was the only like thing we saw with that, it'd be a little bit more forgivable. It'd even be forgivable with like a nunnery or whatever.
Totally, yeah.
But it was the nail in the coffin was like Picard's like, he needs a male role model, like like
we need to uproot him. He needs to be somewhere else. He can't be in a house full of worms. This is unacceptable.
Yeah, like it's ridiculous. And I remember, and it wasn't even me like fully analyzing it. My just knee-jerk reaction was like, why though? Like they seem like pretty good role models. They're kind and welcoming, but also like they kill people with swords. Like it's fucking badass. Like you can't ask for better role models than that. What the hell?
Yeah, pretty dank. Like, it's okay to be the defense lawyer here. If you're in a patriarchal society, like apparently Romulans, right? Being a man comes with some specific responsibilities related to the inequality. If you don't have a good role model for showing you how to, handle those things, not just someone that can like inform you, but a sort of positive expression of how to handle that responsibility, then you're going to have to deal with a bunch of things kind of on your own. That's my best defense, like, and again, it requires a society to be like, patriarchal enough to really feel it. I'm not like, but again, you could use this logic to be like, oh man, like, how could a boy be raised by lesbians, like, and I don't really want to go there, but that's my best attempt to throw it out there. Of course, the show isn't like, sisters, who's going to teach little Elnor how to deal with patriarchy? Like, there's none of that, like, which is, this is the best I can do. It's the best I can do. Okay.
So this isn't so much of a defense. Let me say this, and then we should probably move on to another topic. But this isn't a defense per se, but perhaps like some perspective. We do have 50 years of canon with Romulans to really like draw this out, but except for a few exceptions, all we've really dealt with is the Romulan military or the Romulan Senate. And so in the Romulan military and perhaps Senate, perhaps because it's militarized and standardized, it comes off as very androgynous. You get your standard issue shoulder pads and your cat basket to put the Romulan disruptor in, and that's it. But in regular Romulan society, it's more trad, if you will. Now, we did get a little bit of that in that story arc, the two-parter, where Picard and Spock are chilling on Romulus trying to have a secret Vulcan reading group or whatever. But we didn't get like a lot with the civilian population. Like there was like that woman who served the terrible soup, and some women like resistance people, and that's about it.
Yeah, and if the military is, an integrating egalitarian institution, with regards to gender in the military, who knows what the Resistance thinks of that shit? Maybe they got all like weird. No, I don't know. I'm just fucking around. Like seems like Vulcans are kind of trad about gender roles and stuff with like the Ponfar and the whole like heterosexual pairing rituals and Hey.
Hello.
Oh, looks like we have ourselves a Chief Tom O'Brien.
How's it going, comrades?
Doing all right. Keeping it irrelevant.
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 Yeah.
Excuse me.
Bless you, darling.
Sorry I'm late.
It's okay.
You're a father.
Yeah.
Fine.
Allegedly. I want a DNA test.
Oh my god. That's a little late for that, don't you think?
A friend of mine actually, oh God, I won't go into a bad story, but in the end anyway, he ended up looking after his kid and quitting, like moving country to be and support his missus with his kids. And then it turned out she had some kind of nervous breakdown and he was looking after the kid. And then she sued for custody. And in the court case, it turned out, she said, oh, well, he's not his father. And she knew, and biologically he wasn't the father, which he didn't know. And because of that, he had no standing under law, and he's never seen the kid again.
Whoa.
Like,
oh God.
how bad is that? Like, it was like a year and a half of like looking after this kid thinking he was his son, and then, or a year or something, and then just like in the middle of the court case, it all comes out and he lost all assets. And the other family didn't let him have anything to do with the kid, and that was it.
Yeah, that's not great.
It's really fucked up.
Yeah, boys, watch it where you stick it. Jesus. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, not to stay on this topic too long, but I think it has to be said. I really appreciate like feminist groups trying to make. At least I know this is happening in the U.S., but there's been some feminist groups trying to make like custody cases like completely even, just whoever's the better parent, not default to mother,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. In that case, they defaulted to like the biological mother who was literally in a mental asylum at the time. Her family just got the kid. And that's bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad when children are property. It's bad. Like, it's all
literally.
kinds of awful shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, really radical thought about the rights of children to not be owned by people is lacking.
Yeah.
That's like the deeper critique and a deeper like need, really. But anyway, we should move along.
Well, I do want to ask Tom, I want to ask Chief O'Brien how he felt about Picard's attitude. Well, just we were talking about gender for the first, half hour, as we are wont to do. What did you think of the way gender was represented in this episode? Picard's thoughts on gender and etc.
Specifically, just to remind me again, what happened in it? What was with gender? Talking about the women and the guys.
So the little boy Elnor. Okay, there's clearly some social stigma around him being raised by nuns. He gets called sister boy a few times, which I'm assuming is a slur in Romulan. Then like when Picard visits, one of the things that he promises to do when he comes back is find a proper home for little Elnor, because obviously a bunch of women can't raise a boy. Duh. Like,
yeah, I know.
Gotta be lonely.
I thought that was just like what the hell is that about? Like, how many kids are reared by a single mother? Like, not to mention like, let's say raised by like two gay women, but just raised by one woman,
right?
And with sisters, it's like it's completely normal. Like, and as if he's got no like male people. Like, look, he just walks outside of their whatever you call it. I don't know what the hell, like shack or something that they have. And you walk outside, there's men everywhere, as if like you wouldn't have male role models in your community. It's absurd. It's completely absurd.
Well, all right. So to play more defense for the show, like they live in a refugee relocation camp. There's a lot of like crime and hardship and want. And that's a situation that breeds, some hard patriarchy, some truly toxic and violent people, especially men. And the challenge is to find a good male role model, a good man role model for the kid. And that's the best I got, man.
But like that's like seriously, that like even that is like horrendous because like that says that like, oh yeah, because there's strife in Palestine or Northern Ireland, all the men are crooks. It's just it lacks any kind of normal material basis. I didn't like that. The other thing that Picard is obviously coming. I don't know if they're meaning to write it. I kind of think they might be. But Picard is kind of coming to be shown like quite an egoist. Like he expects people to know him and he expects to be treated well and he thinks his name is worth stuff. And he does seem to be kind of like slightly delusional about his role in things or how people perceive him, which I'm finding that kind of interesting, to be honest with you.
Yeah. One of the things that we were getting into a little bit, we touched on it only a tiny bit, was Picard's human savior complex, where he's,
it's pretty colonial, to be honest with you. I find that the whole plot so far quite colonial, and he says like. My partner, she's black, but one of her friends when she was in college, his father was a white vicar, an Anglican church vicar in England, and a phrase he used to always use. This is in the 80s, like this is not back in the 40s or the 20s, like 1920s. He used to say, "Oh, play the white man," as a phrase to mean like be honorable and fair and just. Right, and in this episode, like I get this kind of feeling that he thinks like there's a bit of like Picard playing the white man or something. I do find, it's savior complex. It's kind of like it's an imperial mindset. The plot it seems to be kind of the good imperialist.
Right. The only thing that potentially offsets that is that the Romulans used to be an empire, and because they got hit with a disaster, they've become refugees. But the way that the show is putting it forward, pretty clearly is showing like Picard is riding in on the Starfleet horse to come help the refugees, and hooray Picard. Now, I will say that in the context of a bunch of people being like, fuck it, let him die, like in the Federation, being like, man, whatever, who gives a shit? You fucking bleeding heart libs. Like, that does come off looking pretty good, except for the part where he doesn't come back for 14 years. That's the thing that really stings about his sort of his interloping into Romulan culture, because if someone doesn't want to be problematic, so they don't save refugees, what good is that? But once you put yourself in that kind of position of authority, even if it's supposed to be beneficent, you have like a crazy ass amount of responsibility that most human beings can't live up to.
I think I've been thinking about it, like, so, a couple episodes ago, there was that other flashback with Raffi and Picard when we found out that Raffi is fired and Picard was basically like resigned. And Raffi's like, well, let's just do it anyway. Let's just like evacuate the Romulans anyway. And Picard's like, well, with no Starfleet support, it's going to be impossible. And I actually kind of get that, right? But what that doesn't mean is that you don't, at a bare minimum, like there's obviously like a lot of warmth between you and Elnor. Like, go visit
something.
at least, or
I
like,
know.
Yeah.
what is he doing with his life? Him and Jabon and Laris can raise Elnor. Like, why didn't he do that? Like,
Yeah.
he really does come off like a dick in this episode, and it is very imperialist, and it's like a utopian, benevolent imperialism where it's not just like conquering, but like being kind of the paternalistic world, or in this case, galactic caretaker, right? But it's still imperialist, and compared to the conservatives or whatever you want to call them in Starfleet and the Federation, who wanted to let them all die. Sure, Picard comes off like a lot better, but it's still you. I don't know if you brought up the merchant towards the end, the guy, or not the merchant, but the guy who was a senator.
So this is a good segue. Yeah, we haven't talked about this yet.
So we're kind of jumping towards the end of the episode, but we have a scene where, well, I guess we should probably explain what happened. So the story continues, and they're passing through the system that what's the planet called? Varus or Vardy? They're passing through the planet where the nuns live and where Elnor lives, and it's
where the settlements are.
Where the settlements are,
Yeah.
and we're back in the present day, and Picard's like, we have to stop, and then so they stop. And they meet up with them, and Elnor's all grown up, and he's like a samurai. And the samurai adult Elnor does not want to go with Picard, and so Picard just kind of like wanders into a Romulans only cafe. So now the settlement is like segregated. The planet's called Vashti. The planet's kind of segregated. There's like a sign that says Romulans only on this like cafe, and Picard just like tosses it off and walks in, which also struck me as hella arrogant. Now, I'm not one to be like, oh, stay in your lane. Like, we have to, like a lefty who wants to self-segregate or whatever.
Come on, he's crashing a Romulan safe space, okay? Romulans, I've been through a lot. They should be allowed to, have a Romulans-only cafe without some fucking Starfleet admiral walking through and, expecting to be served. Like Starfleet has nothing on the Romulans. I mean, come on.
I was half expecting him to say, like, does nobody here speak English?
Oh, God.
Well, okay, all right. Like, when I saw that the first time, I was like my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. But the speech that was given by this Romulan senator at Picard makes it sound like, that the Romulans, makes it sound like the Federation was trying to, manipulate the Romulans. It makes it sound like that the entire point of the rescue effort was to just like throw the Romulans off their game and to, confuse them.
It's an emotional response, but it's one that has some kernel of logical truth in it, because what happened? The star is about to go supernova. Picard comes in, and that former senator is like, you gave this elegant speech about how you're going to help us, and I was crying. And we were like, yay, the Federation is here to save us. And then all of a sudden you weren't there, and we were not ready, right? And so, like, what happened was supernova, Picard and Starfleet is there to save the day, and then they weren't all of a sudden. And now your empire is gone. Your people are scattered. This planet, it's established that this planet in the 14 years that have passed has become basically, what's the word? There's no government and there's no order. It's like the only
Anarchy.
order comes from
Anarchy.
Yeah,
Anarchy.
but the bad kind of anarchy.
Hobbesian anarchy.
It's
Yes.
it turned into Madagascar essentially. No.
Can you explain what you mean?
Yeah, what?
Sorry, that's like that sounds bad. But like I remember like I've talked, it's the case that what do you call it? David Graeber always brings up about like how anarchy is good, and I mean like how like in Madagascar when the central government fell apart, like you talked about people, came together and they run stuff on their own. But you go to like being to Madagascar, I was actually there in the middle of a coup, but I was in Madagascar, and like the whole country is a disaster zone. Like the main road between like the east and the west of the island hasn't been like, it looks like it felt like it hadn't been tarred, some of it, in like 20 years. Like, and it was just one big pothole. So sorry, yeah, you can edit that out if you want. I didn't mean it to sound like shitting on some like poor African country, but it was like about the anarchy stuff.
Right. They're your point is they're in rough shape. Like
Really,
and I
really
don't know.
rough shape.
We can't really talk about like what the real world analog of Vashti is without, touching on some real world like inequality and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
No, I think your point is well taken once you explained it.
Yes.
Like for example, right, I got a bus from the east to the west of the island, from Antananarivo to the west. Can't remember the name of the place I went to, but it was at night, and it was like a 12-hour bus ride or something. And I saw lights in the distance when we were in the kind of wilderness parts, and I couldn't figure out what they were on the mountains. And it turns out all the mountains were on fire. So like they do slash and burn agriculture, but I mean literally for like 300 miles, literally every mountain had a ring of fire, and they were burning the mountains down so the grass could grow again. Literally the whole country was on fire when I was there.
Wow.
I wasn't ready for that. That's pretty intense.
I thought it was some kind of agricultural equipment that was running at night. And then when I was asking people, what's that? Are they like picking peas at night for export market or something? And they were like, no. They were saying like, in my really bad French, and they were saying, no, it's on fire. And I was like saying, they must be, and my French must be really bad. And literally when it started brightening up and I could see stuff, literally every hillside was on fire. It was the most, it was very depressing.
Wow.
Yeah. To somehow pivot back, that's, maybe when you first come back to Vashti, not everything's on fire. But,
yes, little Picard gets going.
But like, it doesn't look great. Like the second time we visit Vashti, like the 14 years later, there's definitely a sense of what the fuck happened here. Like, this wasn't just abandoned by, like, I don't know. It's not just Picard. How do I put this? Picard's like inability to secure Starfleet's role in this, like in reconstructing, the Romulan people's lives, has had like such an immense toll that we were talking about Picard's ego and what the fuck was he doing? Like, he made a colossal mistake by resigning. But like, if there wasn't like an organization that was going to do anything about this, so he only made a colossal mistake by resigning if he couldn't do something else with, like, if the Federation wasn't going to do anything, if they weren't under any circumstances going to commit any resources to the Romulan resettlement efforts and the sort of Xeno humanitarian mission, then he did the right thing. Then he did the right thing by resigning if there was no chance of that. Now, the only thing is that it's summed up in the line, you couldn't save everyone, so you chose to save no one. Like, he as an individual still could have probably done something, but the enormity of what he felt like was his failure must have been so crushing that he was just ashamed to show his face in public at all.
So here's the thought I just had too. When you were talking, how many times have like Kirk or people when they became captains in the movies, like Sulu, or even like Next Gen or DS9 people have like just like been like, fuck you, Admiralty, we're doing this anyway, in so many words, right? Like,
Right.
he is motherfucking Captain Picard. If he's going to be egotistical, he should use that for something. I'm sure Riker or Geordi or Beverly or someone, right? It wouldn't have been like the full weight of all the fleet, but you would have had some people with like ships that are like not nothing. And he could have just been like, and it might have better to get fired and do something good with that than just to like give up and let a bunch of people die, right? Like, or like I said earlier, at the bare minimum, like adopt Elnor. Like you have, it's not just only Picard raising a kid. It's like you have Jabon, you have Laris. They probably would have been down.
But like the thing is, like, how big must your ego be that like you can't even send an email to somebody in 14 years? You can't. The thing is, like, you know, like it doesn't make sense that he was this great, you know, this great humanitarian.
Xeno-humanitarian.
Yeah, when he didn't get his way, he just said, "All right, well, back to my mansion and pick some grapes then for a while." You know, like it doesn't really make sense. Like I don't think Picard, like it's like his disagreement with the thing. It was like it was a damage to his ego more than it was the actual cause on some level. Because throughout the series, he's constantly like thinks of like, I am still this great man and everybody should respect me. But in reality, like he didn't even, like things went wrong. He didn't get what he wanted, and then he just like threw the toys out of the pram and went back to his estate.
And then he didn't text anyone for 14 years.
Yeah, SMS. Maybe the SMS doesn't work. Then maybe he should have done tele. What would it be?
Hollow
mail. Yeah. Hollow Skype.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, like, I don't know, like, it does seem like that there was a lot more that happened that we don't know about that really pushed him over the edge. Because if it was just this, that's like really shitty and, you know, it's humiliating, but it's also like the cost is awful. But like, what happened personally that he couldn't reach out? And he couldn't like try to do some kind of like NGO save the Romulans kind of effort. Like,
right, where were Loris and Siobhan? Were they just like, okay, you're giving up, but we really like you, so let's go like hang out at your vineyard and not do anything? Like, I feel like that's their people. I feel like they would have been like, we gotta figure something out, my dude. Like, you have some sway in this society. Do something. And did they just like kind of like, well, you know, you're giving up and we like you, so whatever, fuck it. I don't believe that.
What I want to know is, where was Samantha Power in all this? Where was Samantha Power?
Samantha Power?
Yeah. Who knows who Samantha Power is?
Who is Samantha Power?
Samantha Power, was she not like the under Obama? She was one of like the ambassador to the UN, and it was all about the humanitarian intervention. She was the one who led this idea and developed this idea for US humanitarian intervention as like as a thing, you know, like Iraq and these things. She was one of the philosophical people behind it. I feel like she might have had something to do with some of the writing of this episode. I'll find out more about it for you. Edit.
Well, all right. Let's kind of
the point of comparison that the episode like suggested in my mind was during the 1990s there was supposed to be a humanitarian intervention. Well, there was a so-called humanitarian intervention into the former Yugoslavia, where there was a lot of bombs dropped, and overall, when you look at the grand scheme of things, it really seems like the international community failed there. It failed in the Darfur with the genocide. Like, the one kind of minimum moralia thing you could get out of the 20th century, which is don't let genocide happen, is something that the international community can't really execute on still. And I don't know, that was the only point of comparison that I have from my lifetime.
So we should probably continue. I wanted to talk about the kind of interpersonal relationship between adult Elnor and Picard a little bit more.
Right.
So we get a scene where Picard walks into a thing and
Walks into a thing.
yes, walks into a thing. I'm not going to clarify that.
What kind of thing?
I'm not clarifying. No, he walks into the nunnery, and Elnor is well, he talks to the lead nun, and then he talks to Elnor and asks Elnor to help him. And Elnor's like, no, like now that you have a use for me, you're gonna come into my life 14 years later. No,
Right.
Fuck you, and walks away. And then Picard has a brilliant idea to, like, we mentioned this scene a little bit earlier, but that's when he goes to the Romulan cafe, tosses the Romulan only sign, and acts like a big swinging dick. To me, it seems clear that what he was doing was provoke violence so that Eleanor would save his ass. It's kind of like a tropey move in a lot of media, and it was a real fucked up thing to do, right? Like,
Yeah, I guess I didn't interpret that way, but it does make sense that way. I thought because, he had just talked to the ship and was going to get beamed up soon, he probably thought it would be, sooner. Like, I guess he says, oh, give me like 7 minutes or something, because he's got the captain or the ship has to like wait for some kind of force field around the planet to do some shit because they're not supposed to be there. They're not exactly welcome there. So Picard knows that he's going to be beamed up, and he's pissed off about the way that, Romulan society went because the Federation pulled out, and, Picard isn't used to not being able to do anything about a situation. So he's like, what, well, time to be a civil rights hero or some shit, like he decides to do some, rather arrogant and potentially imperialist civil disobedience to make a scene but to try to make a point. But I think, I don't know, describing it would be surprising that he didn't expect this to end in violence. But when I was watching it, it certainly doesn't seem like Picard thinks he's about to get in a sword duel with an ex-senator, Romulan separatist guy.
maybe not something that specific, but like, yeah, it's hard to imagine that this doesn't end in violence in some way. And while I am generally opposed to this like notion of like stay in your lane, which just kind of ends in de facto segregation that you see sometimes articulated on the left, I think if I were to go, I'm not even opposed. Well, okay, let me think carefully.
If you're going to go to like a refugee camp and you're from the country that failed to relocate the refugees,
right?
And you see a sign that's like refugee nationality only, and you like kick it over and demand service. That's There's something about that.
That's fucked up.
It's really bad. And there was something else. I'll keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like, and I think it's both things. I think Picard wanted it to be, I'm British civil rights hero, and also wanted to provoke violence to see if Eleanor would save his ass, with the knowledge in his back pocket that he was about to be beamed out. And I think it's around this time that Picard's ship, or whatever the ship's called, is attacked. And so that kind of puts a wrench into the whole situation also.
Yeah, that's what makes me think that it's not like I didn't see the provoking Elnor thing embedded in that. It might be really obvious, and like to someone who's like more media literate than I am, like it's enough of a trope where that's obviously what's happening. But to me, it just seemed like he thought he could, kick over a sign, demand some service, and fucking beam out, Dun, 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 ba, 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 ba. Just like a lot of Star Treks are about especially the old ones, just going beaming down to a world, being like, "Well, this is stupid. You should act differently," and then bye. But your way also makes sense. Like,
And I think it's both. I think he was kind of, if Eleanor didn't save his ass, he was counting on being beamed out, and he really miscalculated. The warlord bird of prey comes back and starts firing on the Rio Grande, and this Romulan senator gives the speech we mentioned earlier, and then challenges him to a sword duel. And Picard continues the appropriation of civil rights by throwing down his sword, and
but it's classic Picard. Picard, wasn't there. I don't believe Picard was there to start a fight. That's out of character. Like,
I agree. I'm making a goof.
But if he was there to start a fight in order to get Eleanor to intervene, then ipso facto, he was there to start a fight. Like,
that's true. I don't think he was there to actually fight. He was there to get Eleanor to defend him, because I think he knows deep down that Eleanor still cares about him, and the reason why Eleanor is mad is because Eleanor cares about Picard, and he never stopped caring about Picard. And he's mad because Picard abandoned him. Rightfully so. And so, he throws down a sword, and the Romulan's like, fuck you, I'm going to stab you. I'm going to do it. And he does it, and Eleanor shows up, and he says, he basically announces then and there that he is binding himself to Picard's cause. You start a fight with Picard, you start a fight with me. If you don't want to die, don't hurt him.
Well, he says that after lopping off the head of that Romulan ex-senator.
It was after? Oh, shit.
It was right after, but he warned him first.
He did warn him. Okay.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Choose not to die, friend.
Who knew the Romulans bleed green? Did you know that?
Yeah, Vulcans bleed green too, right?
Do they?
Yes.
How did I miss that?
I don't know.
You don't really see them bleeding in TNG. And I think it's something that's established in the movies.
It was in Disco. Green blood, baby.
Can I have a little bit of a meta critique? Okay, going back to, well, hardly that meta, but going back to like a couple of episodes ago, I was saying, like, I really don't hope that the first series isn't just creating a Picard going around and creating a posse. And that's kind of what we've had. We've had 3 posse episodes pretty much in a row. We had you one with the blondie hair. What's her name?
Dr. Agnes Girardi.
Oh my God. She's do you guys like her? Do you like her?
Fight me, Tom.
Oh, seriously.
Fight me.
She's so irritating.
Yes.
You just have a hatred for quirky smart women, and
I have a hatred for the style of writing that comes out of Grey's Anatomy. I don't want Grey's Anatomy in Star Trek. So, like her and was the last one we had the guy is he Mexican? Is he Spanish?
Oh, it was either Spanish or Italian guy.
He's Hispanic, I'm pretty sure.
He's Hispanic. Yeah, he was talking in Spanish.
It's like yeah. It sounded Spanish to me. I could understand it, but Italian is so close to Spanish, and when you're in that part of the Mediterranean,
yeah, it's definitely not Italian.
You would know.
Yeah, but and in this one he's got Eleanor or whatever, Eleanor. I think we'll call him Eleanor, and with that fine hair. And
Eleanor D. Roosevelt.
She had short hair.
Rather dreamy.
Yeah.
Let's lay it out there. Like,
yeah.
Sister boys are the only boys. Sister boys are the only boys. That's it.
So, like, how many? Because we're going to meet Riker soon, aren't we? And are we going to meet then Troy? Do we still have Troy to meet? Are we going to meet Geordi? Is there going to be 3 more episodes of just posse making? Seriously, I didn't enjoy this episode.
Riker and Troy, that's one visit because they're married. But
true.
Here's the deal. Like, I thought this episode was like probably the roughest out of the patch. Now that we're out of the, let's see. Now that we're out of the pilot and we're getting to more like I don't want to say this is what the show is going to be regularly, but we have an away mission. Like we're on an adventure, you know? So it's a little more like what the show is going to be regularly. And let's note, directed by Jonathan Frakes, aka William T. Riker. So this is Jonathan Frakes, directorial debut for this series. He's directed a bunch of other Star Trek stuff. So this is his first stab at the Picard show. And it's, like, I felt maybe like it was a little rough. It did something that was pretty good, which is had a lot of moments of levity with the crew, and then had a pretty difficult and, brutal sort of a plot. It's like it takes the Rafi dimension of disappointment in Picard, just cranks it up to like world historical levels. It's like one thing to, not be able to convince your Federation to help in a refugee effort because the people are too sneaky. It's another thing entirely to, to ghost on them because you're too humiliated because of that. It's one of those Luke tries to kill his trainee moments that like you would never imagine would be in the future of this character, and really sort of it impacts the moral character. It impacts like the moral high ground that the character represents in a way that demands redemption.
Do you think it's believable that Picard didn't contact any of these people out of shame, or is that just Picard? Because I feel like that's just Picard's. They're trying to show that this is Picard's character, that like he's all into these things, but all of his self-righteousness is it's just like an expression of his ego. That once like that time his life was finished, those people, they stopped mattering for him, really. And this is just another expression of his ego, as in like it's something to do with his friend that he wants to follow up on. It seems quite, I just feel it like Picard before that, I never found him so ego driven. But he really comes across in this one like I don't like Picard as much as I used to already.
Yeah. I think so. I got a couple of things I want to say in response to that. First of all, I think Picard has changed since TNG. And I think the show is making the case for that. I don't think we see this amount of ego. There is certainly some ego, but not like this. What the show has established is that there is something corrupting about going beyond captain and becoming like an admiral, or maybe even commodore. It's too much power. And the only thing that's keeping them in check is that they have to obey a civilian government, but the civilian government is acting awry as well. That's it. And it seems like both the civilian government and like the Federation and Starfleet were on board, fuck the Romulans, So as soon as they had an excuse, they did it. They did just enough to save face because they're known as the goody two shoes of the galaxy, and that's about it, which is a very familiar narrative. And so I don't think Admiral lost touch with the core values of humanitarianism defined broadly. I don't think he ever lost that, but he got an inflated idea of self-importance because he is Picard, the savior of humanity, multiple times. Fun fact too, I just the other day watched All Good Things for the first time. So I finished CNG. Yeah, it's really interesting to watch that because in that episode, we always give a spoiler alert, but if you haven't watched TNG, you could leave the stream and come back.
Please watch All Good Things, after a lot of TNG, if not the whole series.
Right.
Please watch it.
It's a really good episode. And in that episode, Picard is like shifting through time, and so you get like future Picard, and he looks actually a little bit more haggard than he does now, but
Totally.
that parietal lobe thing that you mentioned is like established in that episode, and so he kind of comes off as like completely off his rocker as the old version of Picard. But where was I going with all that? All this is to say that I think Picard is judged by Q in that episode, right? And Q takes a special liking to Picard in particular and humanity in general, because although he's very judgmental and unsure if humanity has really evolved, he kind of sees that spark in Picard. And so I think when you go, 20 plus years of being told you are this great person, this great man who has these good moral values, like when you are blocked by a bureaucracy to establish, to do those values, you just kind of be like, everyone's fucked up. So I don't think this is totally outside of his character, but it's different, right? It's different. You can see how he could get there, but it's different. This is really about the story of an old man dying and his last, like, trying to reconcile with all the things that's happened and all the mistakes that he's made. That's really what's going on here. And it's telling that, like, the intro sequence is like the world and the universe like shattering around him and all of it coming back to him to put his face and body together, because what he's known to be the Federation, what he's known to be him and his values, is broken. And he's trying to fix it before he dies. And I think part of that journey of him fixing and reconciling is him like overcoming that ego that he's developed. And it's time and time again, the show is not only like Picard has this ego, but the show is also he's wrong for having that, right? Like, he's not wrong ethically as far as like his stances on specific things that we're seeing, but he's wrong to have that ego. So I'm going to let people respond, but I have to really go to the bathroom.
So, do you think Picard has like talked to Q in 14 years? Because maybe Q could have helped the Romulans. I don't know. That's just a thought. Anyway, Sophie had a big, long, serious thing. That's all I have to say.
The Q wouldn't help anybody. Let's be honest.
If he would help any human, he would help Picard. He would make some cracks about how the Romulans are sneaky in like an Andrew Dice Clay sort of way. And then, like, Picard might be able to persuade him. Or to at least like help like relocate them or something. Picard could have led a non-profit, non-governmental organization effort to like save the Romulans and bring Q in and be like, look, Q, you wanted us to be super powerful beings. We're trying to save a species from annihilation. What more do you want, man? Like, he could have hooked Q in, in the Starfleet equivalent of private, like a private sector, bringing in a angel investor, so to speak, I'm
going a bit over the top of their capitalist stuff here, our NGOs.
I don't know, like, it's because if Sophia's right and Picard doesn't deserve the ego that he has just because he did all these great things like before, and then like, his ego stopped him from, him choking on his ego when things didn't go ahead, so that he abandoned a bunch of people that needed him personally, like not just like because, his efforts failed. So he felt like that he had abandoned his greater responsibility. And then so he neglected and abandoned, people close to him who needed him personally. That's the overall arc that we're getting. And yeah, I don't know. I was making a joke about Q at first, but now that I'm thinking about it, like, Picard had so much diplomatic goodwill throughout the Alpha and Beta Quadrant. Like, he might, if there was anyone that could have coordinated a non-governmental, effort to continue this work. It could have been Jean-Luc Picard. And yeah, it remains to be seen why he didn't do that, what his personal explanation to himself is for why he didn't do that. Because I think the speculation that he was choking on his ego too much. He had to lick his wounds for 14 years instead. And he was, he hadn't adequately grieved Data and that sort of thing. I feel like the show is going to go there. The show has got to go into his decision to leave the Enterprise. So I feel like I said before that stylistically I thought this one was a bit rougher, but I really like the promise that, we're going to be talking about his big world historical commitments and his failures to intervene, but then also his personal failures, to just be there in the way that any human can be, you don't have to be a great man, just be a man, as in the words of Severin Cochrane, right? Like, I liked this episode, but it has, kind of massive glaring flaws in the, specifically with, its treatment of gender for being a sci-fi show that could be more futuristic. And okay, real choppy kind of mood stuff. Like, again, I admire trying to bring levity in, and I think the stuff with the crew works. I don't fucking watch Grey's Anatomy, but I love Agnes Girardi's character and her kind of naive baby academic energy that she's got among all these like rugged warriors. Like if I ever do anything meaningful in my life, I will be terrified and hiding behind someone that knows how to fight. But there's a moment that absolutely, positively does not work, and it's really glorious. It's the Borg ritual that Narek showed.
God. I was waiting.
What was that? What was it?
The Borg ritual.
No,
that Narek shows Soji, which is, of course, the sock slide from Risky Business.
Right? What do Borgs just like kind of slide around? What is that?
With the kind of like jihadi war cry as they're going through these like security lasers. If they're security lasers, why do you make a loud sound while you're doing it? Like,
look, that scene, that whole bit. And then at the end, they had this snog and this gushy music swelled up. And I was like, am I watching a rom-com? I just found that so un-Star Trek as to be like a kick in the nuts. That's how I felt it. I felt at that stage in that episode, I was close to turning it off. I thought it was that bad. No joking. That was Mary.
It was
probably
very
the worst bit of any episode of Star Trek I've ever seen.
Yeah, we have to like talk about the B plot a little bit. So for the most part, I also agree. I think the B plot was actually really bad. I don't feel like the B plot last episode really was good. Like, you established a lot of things about Soji, about Narek, about what Soji is secretly even from herself. You figure out a lot of stuff about Romulans and the Borg. Hold on one second. God fucking damn it. You figure out a lot of things about the Romulans and the Borg. It worked. This episode, the B plot is like, the romance stuff doesn't bother me. I think that is in Star Trek. There's how many bottle episodes is like Deanna Troi fall in love, or Dr. Crusher fall in love, or Riker like bangs an alien, like. But
not with that music, not in such a slushy way.
There's a lot of schmaltz in Star Trek.
Seriously,
there's a lot of schmaltz. There's a lot of romantic schmaltz too.
Yeah, schmaltzy, corny romance. And okay, Tom, it's not like year 2020 schmaltzy romance, but yeah, it's like whatever TV's version of schmaltzy soap opera romance is.
This was more like this is like Mills and Boom. It turned Mills and goddamn Boom.
I think the romance and the schmaltzy music has always been there. It was just like this. It was like a pan flute instead of whatever happened this episode. You know?
Right. It's the style of romantic schmaltz that is really different. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it clangs for me too. It was ridiculous. Now, the only thing that I thought, it seems like a little bit of Frakes gone wild, you know? Like, you could kind of imagine him being like, yeah. And I wonder if he was trying to do like a Twin Peaks kind of thing where you do something really campy in order to set it up for like, for the whatever emotion was just demonstrated in that cheesy moment to be dashed, because they have a very tense discussion directly afterwards. That was the only thing that I thought was, clever about that it was a very campy misdirection.
Yeah, the kiss and the immediate fight worked for me. The sliding around absolutely did not work for me. If you're going to set up, like, I was so stoked when the scene began. I'm like, a Borg ritual? What the hell is this going to be about? This is going to be so fucking cool. And they're like sliding, like, what the fuck?
Me too. I was like going, this is unbelievable. A Borg ritual. I never could have thought such a thing could have existed. And they start sliding, taking off their socks and doing
What
something
is
out
that?
of a fucking 80s rom-com.
What is that?
Oh.
It's an ancient Borg ritual from Risky Business.
Oh god, it's so whatever writer wrote that, like, I'm sorry, but you need to not. You need to just not.
It's a ritual, honorific to the Omega particle. Obviously. That's Borg spirituality for you. Listen, I don't make the rules. That's just the most perfect ritual there is. The Borg seek perfection. All other rituals are irrelevant. Only the sock slide from Risky Business. It's perfect.
Hermetical in the chat says, as a Brit, I find Narek painful to watch. And seriously, I do too. Like, he's playing like a public schoolboy. I find his style, like, you mightn't pick up on it as much as somebody living in England, but it's like something that, it is a very, I don't know, I can't describe what it is about it, but yeah,
like an immature kind of style.
It's just like a public schoolboy. Like in England, that means a private schoolboy, but like like a posh English tall white guy playing a rather charming Hugh Grantish type character. It's pretty painful.
Yeah, I could see that. It doesn't. That part of him doesn't cling as much to me, but I will say that the scene after that, they're really trying to squid you out, and they succeed, like, in a big way with Narek and his sister.
Oh God, brother fucker Romulan, like, that stuff is gross.
It's gross, but I think what they established in that scene, and we should wrap up and pivot to the end of the last scene, which I think is worth touching on, and then final thoughts. But what I will say about that scene with Rizzo and Narek is, I got the sense most strongly after Rizzo left and Narek was by himself, like, hitting his head on the back of the wall, that this has been something that's been going on his whole life.
Yeah.
And that worked for me from, like, an acting standpoint. I think that was, I don't know if he was directed to do that by Frakes or if that was his choice, but to me, that one motion really conveyed that, like, this is something he's been dealing with his whole life and he hates it and it's abusive. And I think, like,
right, yeah,
it wasn't, like, clearly it bothered him. And up until that point, like, it could have been her teasing him, like, it could have walked up to the line of abuse, or who knows, like, but in that moment for me, it was established that he is incredibly uncomfortable around her and, like, really hates her. And I think that's also setting up and further proof for my theory that he's going to flip. He's going to sympathize with Sochi so much and hate her so much that he's not going to want to follow through and kill her.
So I think that latter thing, it is what I got out of that scene the most. I didn't read that as personally as, oh God, I wish my sister would stop with the Game of Thrones shit. Oh, you're so gross. You know, like I read it more along the lines of like along the lines of like, I'm just this fucking spy trying to do my fucking job. And okay, my weird pervy sister's kind of right that I've been really into robots for a long time. And she'd stop teasing me about being in love with a robot. What's wrong with being in love with a robot? Like, but like no, but seriously,
It's
more,
sick. That's what's wrong with it. It's sick. It's like a perversion from our Lord Jesus' plan.
yeah, should only covet thy sister like Romulan God intended. Like, really?
Yeah, it's so ironic that she's telling him that he's sick. Like, what you're doing right now is a million times worse.
Stop flirting with your little brother for the love
God.
of Gene Roddenberry. Please.
Yes.
I mean, I guess he's a serious horn dog, so might have appreciated this, but still, please. He didn't like weird power dynamics and oppression.
Right. So let's talk about the last scene. So we talked about earlier.
Scene.
Yes. So we talked about earlier. The Rios Grande was attacked by the warbird that basically runs this system. It's a classic TOS warbird. Or was it a bird of prey? Let me see the notes. It was Romulan bird of prey. And so it's an old ship, but like when you have cloaking and there's no government in the sector, this guy runs shit, basically. And they're kind of fucking up the Rio Grande, which I think was a strange credulity a little bit because Rio Grande is such a newer ship. But I'm assuming that because it decloaked and got the drop, that might have kind of gave it the edge. At any rate, Rio Grande is getting fucked up a little bit, and on top of the warbird, it's the planetary defense that really does it, more than a warbird, actually. I remember now. The planetary defense is shooting at the Rio Grande as well now. And, you know, right at the nick of time before Eleanor gets shot with the disruptor, Picard and Eleanor get beamed up to the ship. And, but they're getting fucked up. I guess they had to drop shields to beam them up, so they're not doing great. And they're trying to escape, and they can't quite shake the warbird. And I don't know where this other ship shows up. And it's a small, little, tiny ship, but it's definitely made for maneuver and fighting. And, you know, the emergency security hologram's like, the ugly ship, but the pilot's fantastic. They like, who the fuck is this person? And the little ship gets all fucked up, and they're like, beam the pilot out, beam the pilot out. They're going to die.
Well, yeah, well, they're like, who the fuck is this man? You know, who's this guy? Who is he? We need to get him. Did you get him?
Right. Yeah. Using the universal he instead of the woke universal they.
Yeah. But classic misdirection, because who is it, babe? Who do they beam?
It is 7 of fucking 9. I literally screamed when I saw her. I also screamed.
Did you know she was going to be in it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't. I was like, I thought it was going to be Riker, and I said, oh, it's obviously Riker. Jesus, Riker. I was like, 7 of 9. Oh,
Tom,
I love 7 of 9.
Tom, for the first time, you know, I'm like highly jealous of the way that you experienced the show. Like,
what? Not looking at fan site stuff and all that.
It's just a trailer. The trailer reveals a lot. It doesn't reveal everything, but it reveals a lot. And 7 of 9 was one of the things it revealed.
Yeah. But like some people watched the trailers to the point where they saw the bird of prey and were like, oh, 7 of 9's coming, which I'm glad I'm not that like broken. No. But oh my God, I knew 7 of 9 was coming, but I didn't know when. But you didn't even know. You didn't even know.
No, I got really into The Walking Dead for about 2 seasons, and I started following these YouTube channels who discuss everything that's going to happen, blah blah blah. And I watched it, right? And I hated watching the episodes because I knew everything was going to happen and all this rubbish.
Yeah.
And you're much better off coming at it like, just like, you know, fresh if you can. It's hard to do it on the internet. But
sometimes YouTube analysis videos or discussion videos can be fun, but like you should wait till you're caught up with the show. That's I learned the hard way. That's true with video games too. Even silly review not even serious like discussion content can be super spoily. So
Hi.
yeah, us actually.
Well, at least we try to do the warnings. Remember, spoilers.
Yes. So let's kind of quickly wrap up because we're getting into overtime. Esri, you said earlier you liked the episode. Did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, it's clearly like the weakest. It's clearly the weakest episode so far. Even though like the content is the first adventure, like away mission that we get, and I think it's promising. 7 of 9 reveal is handled really well. Hopefully 7 of 9 will bring some Borg perfection to the show's understanding of gender. I'm not expecting huge things on gender, but I'm looking forward to 7 of 9 dual wielding some Romulan disruptors and the whole free cloud experience that we're promised next episode. I think the show is like developing well, even though its flaws are on display. And that's come on. Who's more charitable than Esri?
Tom, final thoughts?
I thought this was the weakest episode as well, except for the reveal of 7. And I did kind of like when they cut the guy's head off. That was quite well shot. I'm not going to lie, but I find that I don't mind the show making out Picard as being a bit of a dickhead. I actually find that's an interesting kind of plot development, and not the kind of perfect, unbelievable captain we always got in TNG. But I didn't like how they did the schmaltz stuff, and honestly, I want something. I want the plot because it is very plot driven. It's not like an old Next Generation one. It's explicitly plot driven. But it seems like to me that they're stringing out the plot with posse building. And like, how many episodes are we getting in this season? Are we getting 10?
Correct.
10. So we're 4 episodes in, and we really haven't done much plot. Like I think we've done a lot of posse and background character development. Like it's been at least 50% character development for me and not much plot. And for a plot-driven show, I kind of feel like I just want them to get on with it. So hopefully we won't have you can be guaranteed we'll have at least one more posse one, because we have to see Riker and Troy, and we might even get one. The next one might all just be about 7 of 9. So we might.
Fucking yeah. I mean,
yeah.
The next episode, is going to be the posse episode with 7 of 9. It's possible that they're going to round out the posse with 7 of 9. It's also possible that we're going to be doing more visits. I think visits. I mean, we're going to be doing some visits. We're going to visit some classic Trek characters, and that might be too close to getting the gang back together kind of thing. But I think those episodes will be more distinct because I don't really see Riker and Troy, leaving whatever they're doing, because I don't think Picard will let them. For example.
Oh, maybe not. But I just kind of feel like I want to the show like Discovery is more plot driven. They actually develop the plot, and it's actually very dynamically written. Where this one, I'm feeling like, when are we going to get on with it? So that's my main criticism of it, apart from the schmaltz. Like the schmaltz stuff, nearly ruined the episode for me. But I'm hopeful. I love 7 of 9. So let's get rocking.
So my thoughts are, up until this point, I've been kind of pushing back on Tom as far as disappointment at the getting the crew together. But kind of thing that they're doing right now, getting their posse. But next episode is episode 5. We're halfway through season 1. And I don't feel as strongly about this as Tom does. I think they've been doing some plot alongside of posse building, right? And I haven't hated it. But at the halfway point, I'm ready to move on. I think they have been kind of stretching a little bit. And I would feel much less strongly about this if this was 12 or 13 episodes of a season, but it's 10. So I kind of think that this next episode is going to be the last posse episode, and it's already going to be, it's going to hit the ground running as far as that's concerned, because 7 of 9 is there. They're just going to, like, Picard is just probably going to, like, talk to her and figure out, like, what's going on. Why is she here? What's she doing? You know, he's going to welcome her, I'm sure, but, like, they just want to, like, establish, like, what she's been up to, and probably break the terrible news that Chakotay's dead because they suck at running Native Americans. Yeah, I'm
hashtag save Chakotay.
Hashtag save Chakotay. I'm priming myself to be very disappointed by that, just so, like, when it happens, and if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be, you know, pleasantly surprised.
You know, like, as well, talking about tropes, the very first character who was killed in this season was a black guy.
Yes,
yes. Yeah, 100%. It's like, oh, black guy, big budget.
Oh, yeah.
Good luck.
I mean, there was one other thing I wanted to mention as well, was about the stuff where they were on Vashti. Did anybody see the script that they had for signs on the stuff? And it looked like Korean. Like, they really doubled down. They had, like, signs above some of the, like, stalls or stores, and it looked like Korean script. It's like they really doubled down on the what do you call them, Romulans, as, like, Oriental people. I just found, or Asian people, like, I found it, like, I would have thought they could have lost some of that. There's no need for it.
It did feel a little like exotic Asian kind of thing going on there. I totally see that.
Yeah, it's baked into the way Star Trek does its different species. You know, like Star Trek is a fantasy where humans overcome racism, and biological races are also represented in different species. It's very strange. It deals with both, you know, theories of radical difference in a reactionary way, and then also in a sort of, you know, progressive way sometimes. And then it also has that, like, liberal, we are the world element at the same time. Star Trek cheats at race and nationality. But, you know, ultimately, we all know where it started was in this, like, cop during the Cold War writes a space Western, you know? But, like, it's amazing that Star Trek could portray anything else but that. And it's really more amazing that it gets not racist at any point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the stuff that's running through it has been present in Star Trek for a long time. You know, hopefully this is the... I say it in a way that I don't expect it to actually improve. But I'd like this sort of Romulan subplot to, you know, be an opportunity to kind of explore, like, the, you know, colonial dynamics of the Federation, like, and I know that they're playing with the imagery, but I want to see them dive into that. I want to see more Deep Space Nine, like, repercussions for the actions of the Federation. I want to understand Romulans as Bajor. You know, I want that. I want that, like, metaphor to be unpacked.
Yeah, I really hope that's where they go too. That was the thing that made Deep Space Nine my favorite, was that kind of unpacking of, like, colonialism and national liberation that you got in Deep Space Nine, like, out the jump. Like, this was established in season 1, and that was what really made Deep Space Nine my Trek. I hope they go there. And I'm also not holding my breath for it, because this is a story about Picard at the end of the day, which is fine. But I think best case scenario, you have a story about Picard that uses Picard as a vehicle to explore the kind of colonial behaviors of the Federation, and explore the consequences of them doing that through Picard, right? Like, the consequences interpersonally, and also the consequences, like, in the macro, like, galactic sense. And I think, you know, like I said, I kind of hope they're smart enough to tie this into Disco season 3, but we'll see. I also I don't know. I don't know if I feel as strong enough to say this is the worst episode yet. I guess it is, but I still really like it, and I really like all of them. I think the thing that makes this the worst episode is the B plot is so nothing. You know, it's nothing, and the only thing that kind of saves it is like whether or not whatever the truth of Narek's character is. That last scene between him and Rizzo shines some light on what that truth might be. You know, in a way that was really. I don't want to say good because it's terrible, but like in a way that's like compelling storytelling, you know. But other than that, like the whole Borg like ritual thing was just like a total flop and like a wasted opportunity, in my opinion. And I would have just preferred it if they had like basically if they're going to do that B plot at all, just focus between the tension between Rizzo and Narek and leave it at that. You know,
yeah, I kind of feel like brotherfucker, whatever her name is, you know, agrees because she's like, all right, if more things don't happen in this B plot, you know, by next week, there's going to be pain and violence.
Yes,
it's like almost explicitly stated. She gives it a week, like, all right,
oh, right. I didn't think about that. Like a week,
she's like, listen,
like next.
If this B plot is so underdeveloped next episode, I'm gonna blow this shit up.
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
As an actress, this sucks. let's be having it. No, I hope so.
Wow, that kind of makes Rizzo more sympathetic than she should be. Jesus. It's like, I may be a terrible person, but this B plot sucks. Fix it by next episode, little brother.
And I promise I'll stop hitting on you.
Oh God, yeah. I think they are going to really like kind of amp up the tension in that B plot next time, and I think we're going to get the kind of like Soji is revealed to be a android and everyone's freaking the fuck out kind of scene, but maybe not. I don't know. The trailers did show some fight scenes on the Borg cube, so I think that's coming at some point. And that might be like Rizzo having enough of it, and I think it might be the time where Narek is forced to decide like how much does he actually love Soji, and can he accept her now that she's like aware that she's actually an android?
Is she actually called Rizzo, or is that you just giving her like a dirty gang name?
No, I Lieutenant Rizzo is what she's called when she's posing as a human.
Yeah.
I don't know what
it
her.
Sounds like she's in like something from. Is it Rizzo? Was that in?
Pretty sure
with John Travolta. What's that one with John Travolta?
Oh,
Rizzo was one of the girls in Grease.
Pulp Fiction.
Grease, wasn't it?
Grease. Okay.
What's she called Rizzo? Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking of.
So I think I was a bit too long-winded for Esri, but I think we should wrap up. It's getting to 1 hour and 40, so I told our editor it'd be 1 hour and 20, so let's cut it. So we can end the episode here as far as editing purposes.
Let's hit the stream.
Let's see what we got. So we got Hermetical. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. All right. So we got comments. I love this.
We got a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's fucking do this. This part is fun. This is just for funsies.
Just for funsies.
And remember, if you're gonna watch this back, there's hella spoilers. I saw Kim in the chat. Know for a fact you haven't seen Picard episode 4, so you better watch this shit too.
Yeah, watch the episode before you watch this show.
Let's see. We had. Oh, this is sweet. Hermetical says, "Glad to be here. We've been enjoying your wide-ranging combined knowledge and breakdowns. Great Sunday tea time viewing. I'm not much of a critic, so good to hear these discussions."
Oh, yay! That's super sweet. Thank you.
Isn't that sweet? Oh my god, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for being encouraging. We need encouragement. Thank you. Let's see. Julian Crick says, "The white suit from the flashback in the beginning looked colonial as fuck." Yeah, that, and of course the hat. Come on.
We got.
Let's see.
Oh, go ahead. You're doing a good job.
Okay. All right. Fine.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
that Julian is Illuminatus, Lexi. I
Oh,
think that's
yeah.
Illuminatus.
What's that? Illuminatus air horns. Let's see. Her medical says Power, the person you were talking about, Tom, was a war correspondent in Yugoslavia. And you said, Tom, and the UN ambassador for Obama. She's really associated with humanitarian intervention.
Humanitarian.
Yeah, she has a long history from journalism to policy formation in this area.
Oh yeah. Her medical. Yeah, Tom mentioned this earlier.
Mhm.
So I find Eric painful to watch.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Say, what is it? So what's the word for this? You know, someone's playing. He's like a cartoon Brit or something. You know, it's like a
Typecast.
yeah,
Yeah, you know, like that
Like a
skinny,
stereotype.
white, tall,
yeah.
like kind of posh voice, rather charming, and full of like witty comebacks, and it's just like put a gun to my head,
Your
shoot me now.
It's the national stereotype.
He's a real Austin Powers Romulan.
He needs bad teeth.
Yeah, it's true. His teeth are way too good.
If they had him like with bad teeth and a Swedish love pump, I would like his character.
Can
Yes.
we name this episode Austin Powers Romulan? And we'll just ask the editor to tag this part in at the end of the episode or something.
What about Ryzian Love Pump? I mean, like, I don't know. Let's see. Well, this is a bummer, but this is about Madagascar and vanilla growers that her medical had heard stories. They put names or serial numbers on individual vanilla pods to deter theft. And I guess to go back, yeah, like bad boy Hugh Grant shit. Let's see. If they hate AIs, falling in love blasphemy.
Kind of seems like it, yeah. Like
Yeah,
that's the only way Rizzo could not be absolutely like batshit by implying that loving an android is worse than her flirting with him, who is her brother.
Yeah. We also have Kim saying,
"Oh God,
yeah, remember when Paris and Seven had their romance lull? It did not last long, and
good."
Seven quickly decided that Paris is irrelevant. And it's true. It's the truth.
Did everybody not try it on with Seven in Voyager? Did Neelix try it on with her as well at one stage?
I feel like they were writing Neelix as asexual by that point, which I'm fine with. Harry Kim tried to introduce the concept.
Oh, it was Kim. Kim tried
of sexuality, and she immediately is like, "Okay, you want to fuck?" And he's like, what?"
Yeah, I remember that.
And, like he could have just, because he was clearly interested. He could have maybe just said like,
"Okay,
like I'm not fully comfortable doing this immediately. Maybe let's like slow it down, have dinner first. But yes, of course, Seven, I'm very interested." The way he handled it was, classic Harry Kim. You only get one shot with 7 of 9, Harry.
That's it. Just grab it, both arms. Everybody was watching that, like, just going, "Kim, you fool!"
Just cringing. Yeah, the way that character is written is just, it's like, gosh, golly, she whiz. I don't know. I don't mind his character that much, actually. There's things about him that like I really love as a character, and he gets a lot of hate. Like that character, people hate that character. I don't understand the Harry Kim hatred.
No, I didn't hate. I don't mind Harry Kim. The character I hated in Voyager,
Neelix.
Neelix, what a prick!
Yeah,
seriously.
Those first few seasons with Cass are just very creepy.
They are. It's like he looks like an 80-year-old man going out with a teenager. And like the other thing as well is, if you've noticed, like, I don't know if you've seen him like in other stuff since, you always know he's Neelix in everything else because he talks like Neelix. He has the same behaviors. Imagine he is essentially acting himself. Imagine actually being Neelix in the real world all the time. That's what that.
No,
That's what that actor is. He actually is Neelix. Imagine that.
I refuse. I refuse to believe that. No.
Watch him. He comes up in loads of stuff. You're like going, Neelix. He's acting. It's just Neelix.
So he's typecasted as Neelix even when he's not that alien species.
He can't do anything else but Neelix. So the thing that really annoys you about Neelix, he is in every other fucking film he's ever in.
Listen, I don't know. I don't know if Ethan Phillips is actually Neelix. I don't want to say that. I don't know this to be true. Okay.
Ethan Phillips, if by chance you're watching this,
he must have like skin this thick.
yeah,
like Neelix. Like,
yeah, the whole like ruining an actor's life because you don't like the character that they play thing is not a good vibe. I don't think that's what Tom's doing, but
leave Neelix alone. Hashtag.
I'm just telling the truth. All right, I gotta leg it. I'll
Okay.
see you all next
We got to
week.
run through.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Shout out to the chat and
Yeah.
episode 5. Let's get this posse fucking finished.
All right.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Ciao.
All right. Peace.
so one thing I just want to say before we go off,